Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this.
Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
Google has found a new way to piss me off.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Behind-the-scenes camera crap.
Here, tell us about courage, Phil. Tell us about courage.
I am Nadella. I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing.
Welcome, everyone, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I'm here with Landon.
Hello.
And Caleb.
Yo.
And we're here to talk all things tech this week, which
That's right.
We have some pretty decent news other than, we had CES last week, pretty cool, fun, but I guess, how would you consider this? Not crazy out there tech news?
We have actual news as opposed to just weird things.
We do. Really too. Wild and out there tech news. But what was really bad? We're going to get into this, and I'm just going to go for this. Did you know there a while ago we talked about how Microsoft built a bunch of custom Hololens headsets for the U.S. Army, and they were going to use it, and it was $1 billion contract for a couple years they were doing this. Well, Congress decided to say, no, we're not going to fund that.
Oh.
Because of field testing and things, they said that, let me bring this quote up here, within 72-hour scenarios, soldiers who are testing the devices experience symptoms of discomfort after less than 3 hours.
Whoa, they wore a VR headset for almost 3 hours and felt feelings of discomfort? Who could have seen that coming?
I think everyone.
Unironically, all of the gamers in the world.
Really? They did say, though, that...
Has Congress ever heard of VR before?
But they did approve of $40 million from the $400 million sum they requested that they develop a new model. So they paid them money to develop a different model. So
here's a bunch of money to go develop a VR headset that doesn't make you feel nauseous after extended periods of time. You want to know how you solve that problem? Is instead of a VR headset, it has to be a full virtual reality simulation. Like they need to put you on a treadmill in a room that does climate effects and stuff like that for when you're moving. Can blow air on you and it'll subtly tilt in different directions so that it'll feel like your body is accelerating in that direction, that kind of thing. And if they do that, then you can trick your inner ear into not caring and no discomfort. So there you go. That's how you solve that problem. Be real useful for soldiers in the field, I'm sure.
I was going to say, But, so I guess Microsoft got $40 million for HoloLens 3.
Cool.
Yes. So I just thought that was interesting. That was a big thing. They ordered this $400 million contract, supposed to be for $400 million for this year for these headsets. And then they're like, no, we'll give you 40, but make a better model. So cool. AR is doing good. Yeah. I don't know. It's just interesting to hear this because I thought this was 2 years ago we talked about this. And now they're
Well, and what's hilarious about this is true to form for the U.S. government. They paid in advance for somebody to develop a thing that they thought they needed, despite the fact that they didn't clearly understand what it was that they wanted. And in the meantime, somebody completely different has, in fact, developed something that is closer to what they want. It's called the MetaQuest Pro. And also, at CES, HTC showed off their version of that concept, and Apple is actually rumored to be launching their version of that concept sometime here in the next couple of months. So,
yeah,
good job, U.S. government. You picked the wrong horse.
I think even Microsoft might have been surprised, we were meaning for this to fail.
I mean,
okay.
To be fair to Microsoft, they were not the only ones working on the technology at the time, but they were the only ones being like open about it, about the fact that they were working on it. It just seems really weird. Like, it seems like the government just went to Microsoft and said, hey, we want something like this thing you're making, as opposed to going to the industry at large with a contract open for competition and saying, hey, everybody in the industry, we're interested in something like what Microsoft is working on. And obviously Microsoft would have bid for that contract, but I think that probably Facebook and Apple and a couple of other players would have as well. So
Yeah.
weird.
True. So there's that. So I guess we'll be having some more HoloLens news in this year. So didn't expect that one. All right, let's move on. We're going to be talking about Microsoft's 365. So they did something. They decided to copy their competitors for cloud storage. So they pretty much have been adding different tiers for their OneDrive. This is a separate service from Microsoft 365, but now they're trying to integrate OneDrive into Microsoft 365. Just so you know. So if you pay for just your Microsoft OneDrive, you'll be slowly getting emails and things saying that you're going to be migrated. And instead of paying OneDrive, you're getting a Microsoft 365 subscription. So what did they do? So they pretty much have copied Google, and I believe Apple had the same price on their cloud storages. Basically, $1.99 a month or $20 a year, and you get 100 gigabytes of storage. Then the next gigabytes of storage was like, let's see, 400, which is $3.99, 600 gigabytes, which is $5.99, 800, and then a terabyte, which goes all the way up to $10. You can also on there is if say you're a current Microsoft 365 on a plan that's higher than this basic plan that they're calling it. Say you have the terabyte of storage or 365 family, and you've already got a terabyte of storage, you can actually add any one of these to it. So you can actually technically now have 2 terabytes of online storage.
Oh, okay.
They're just adding more things, and me just kind of doing a quick search over to Google and looking at their Google One and stuff and their prices. It's very similar, just competing with that. So, which good. They are also saying that there is a free version of Microsoft 365 Basic. If you like ads in Outlook and ads everywhere, then this would be for you, because then you don't really have to pay anything. You can use their stuff for free, but there's ads everywhere. So that is that's an option. And I'm too old for ads, so I don't like that. But they're just revamping everything. So basically they're just revamping and migrating the OneDrive subscription, and they're going to bring it over to 365 and call it something else. And that's just what's happening. They're trying to unify and make things simpler, I think. So, which this I believe would be simpler, but it also offers you other options other than just paying for the OneDrive. You're also getting their Office suite if you ever use those things. So cool.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it is what it is.
You ever looking for that stuff? Sweet. Bundling all their services and everything. So, and that's pretty much it for Microsoft. Yes, there is a little bit more going on with the ABK deal. I'll just throw this out there. I guess this is a little more than just gaming, kind of. So Google has hopped on the bandwagon and said they don't think this is a good idea. Now that they found out that Microsoft wants to put their own app store with all this stuff on their platform, so they're siding with Sony. And Nvidia has gotten on there and says, we don't like it, but we're not against the deal. So I don't take that for what it's worth, but that was Nvidia. Because now I found this information. This was real quick, and I didn't actually look it up, but maybe Caleb might know more. They said that Nvidia is one of the bigger presence of cloud gaming and cloud stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
they are.
why they don't want Microsoft to do this?
Oh, I guess I can see why, because I'm pretty sure that that actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure that all of Activision Blizzard's PC games are available through GeForce Now.
Yeah, I think that's what it's
So,
called.
like, they may have some concern that if Microsoft buys them, then they're going to restrict them to Xbox Cloud Gaming and won't allow them on GeForce Now. So that actually seems to be more of a clear and present concern than Sony has, because
Or that Google
Sony
has.
Yeah.
definitely more than Google. I'm a
Yeah.
little confused. It's all like, oh no, they want to put an app store on our phones. So
I mean, there's been more
people already do
things,
that.
yeah.
Is that
Yeah, I think they realized. I mean, that's a lot of money. Call of Duty, we'll bring it up, makes a lot of money on platforms, and if they're not going to
Yes.
get that 30%,
yeah, and yeah. So I think that definitely, there's a lot of consternation to the fact that Microsoft just wants Call of Duty. Like that's where the consternation lies. It sounds an awful lot like Microsoft could almost not care less about Call of Duty.
well, I think they know. They're like, no, we want to keep it everywhere because it makes billions of dollars. So why would we pull it from anywhere?
It is a giant performer in the gaming space,
But I think it's also a big moneymaker for everyone else, and I think that's what everyone else is like.
yeah.
Ugh, don't do that.
I honestly feel like if Microsoft would consent to signing agreements with all of these folks saying we're going to keep Call of Duty on your platform for at least the next 10 years or something like that, then
Well, they did that, remember?
All of their
They even did it with
concerns would
Nintendo.
vanish. Well, yeah, they did. I mean,
They did it with Nintendo, 10 years. They did it with Steam, and Steam was like, we're not signing this, but we know you'll do it. And it was Sony that was like, we don't want to touch it. Because if they sign it, then they have no argument.
I'm really confused. Well, yeah, because like that is the only thing is just, yes, Call of Duty is a big moneymaker on Sony's platform. They get their 30% cut. And yeah, Google gets the 30% of Call of Duty Mobile as long as the purchases happen through Google's store. And yeah, Nvidia probably, they probably get some kind of a cut of.
If it's on their
Think
system,
of
they
it.
probably get some 30%. That's me assuming. I don't know.
I actually think that in the case of GeForce Now, probably what happens there is that Nvidia gets, or Activision gets like a 30% cut of the revenue that Nvidia makes off of subscribers to GeForce Now playing Call of Duty on GeForce
That's
Now.
possible.
Because Nvidia doesn't make money from like microtransactions inside of the games. Nvidia makes money from people paying for GeForce Now.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe they might get microtransaction money as well, but I don't know. I guess that maybe that's why Nvidia didn't say like, hey, we're officially against this thing, you shouldn't do it. They were just kind of like, we don't like it. Because maybe it's less of a big deal to them. But
yeah.
I don't know.
I think overall, well, they did push the date again. I think it was the CMA said that we're going to push it to June instead of just April. So,
yeah, so it lingers. Yay.
It's going to linger, and more documents and things are going to come out. And jeez,
what fun!
I wish it would just be done.
Yeah,
because it's just on. Okay, guys, this is the thing that annoys me about the whole thing, and I'll say this. It's hampering everybody on trying to innovate. Whether you're Microsoft, whether you're Sony, whether you're any company, right now, everything in this, there was such a trajectory of things happening. But because of this deal, and because people are wanting to postpone it and do all this stuff, like there's even more than just this. Like there's ridiculous things that are happening. I feel that are ridiculous, in my opinion. I know that you're just hampering things right now. It's not helping.
Man. Can I blame this deal for the iPhone 14?
I mean, you know what? You might as well, because didn't Apple have some say about this? Because
Is that why Apple is doing absolutely freaking nothing right now? Like, we had no good Macs last year aside from the Mac Studio, and the phones and iPads
we might
were
as well.
absolutely a trash
Did you
fire,
know?
So
I don't know if you heard this, or maybe I did talk about this, but a bunch of they call it gamers versus Microsoft. They're suing Microsoft for buying Activision Blizzard.
what?
A bunch of people from California they're calling themselves gamers because they don't want to call out what platform they're on, are suing Microsoft because they're buying like this is the dumb stuff I'm talking about. Like, why? I don't know. I feel okay. Yes, I am on Microsoft's side. I'm in this, but you got to realize, guys, I don't play Call of Duty. So what I'm looking for is Blizzard stuff and all their old IP that they've got in there. They've got the James Bond license. They have Hexen. They have all these. They have all the Marvel's the Alliance, the Alliance games. They have all of Ravensoft stuff. They have all these things, and I'm just like, no, I want that stuff.
You know, maybe I'm gonna go back to featuring an indie game every week, because those don't have anything to do with these giant corporations. And
you should do every game that is being held back because of people are dumb.
But here's the thing: indie games aren't being held back because indie games don't care what all the giant corporations are doing, and that's one of the reasons that I like them so much. So, maybe I'll talk about that more.
Yeah. So there, I mean, I'm going to give you that. That's my 2 cents on the ABK deal thing right now. I just figured an update that it's going to be longer. More people are hopping on the bandwagon of getting a concession or something stupid like that, and we'll just see. So we'll just leave that at there. I do have some more gaming news, but I'll hold that till later. We're going to go ahead and go over to Caleb. Caleb, what do you got for us?
Okay. So we talked last week about how AMD announced their X3D versions of their processors for the 7th generation.
Yes,
with 3D V cache on them and all that stuff, how they're coming in like February, right? Shortly after that, they just straight up launched a whole, several new processors in their 7th generation. Now, these are the non-X versions of the 7900, 7700, and the 7600, right? So instead of the 7900X, this is the 7900 non-X, the generic vanilla version, okay? And I actually think that genuinely these are more interesting than the 7900X and the 7700X and the 7600X, okay? Because I feel like all of the X versions are going to be utterly eclipsed by the 3D V cache versions of those processors in terms of being the most balls to the wall performance oriented chips that AMD sells. So they're about to get replaced on that front. And these are cheaper. Ever since the Ryzen platform has launched, I have felt like the non-X SKUs of these chips tend to be the more interesting ones because they're all open to overclocking. You can do whatever the crap you want with them as long as your motherboard can support it. And they cost less money. So you pay less money up front, you put in a little bit more effort yourself, and you can get very similar performance to the X version of the chip and spend less money overall doing it, which is great. And so far with the testing for these ones, it seems like that, but even more so. So, first of all, more compelling prices. I believe the average is almost $100 less for these chips versus the X versions of them. I think the 7600 is more like $50, and the 7900 is closer to 100, and 7700 is somewhere in between. But, it's a pretty significant amount of money less than than the X version of the chip.
Gotcha.
Also, instead of having 95 or 120 watt TDP for them, they're all set at 65 watts, which means they use much less power. They're much more efficient, which means they generate way less heat, which matters because they all also ship with stock coolers. The X versions of AMD's processors tend to not come with a stock cooler because the expectation is they run hotter, they're more performance-oriented. You're going to want to stick a custom cooler on there that is better than AMD's stock coolers, even though AMD's stock coolers they're decent. They're better than Intel's. But at 65 watts for these chips, the stock coolers that come with them should be able to keep them cool just fine. So you don't have to pay for an extra CPU heatsink for your processor, and they just cost less overall, and they use less energy, which means they cost less on your power bill every month. So, like, that's actually a lot of savings right there when you come right down to it. So they're way more efficient. They cost less. Seems like a really good deal that way. And even better, in testing, in games specifically, 5 to 8% less performance than the X version of the same chip. So all of these savings, and you're losing maybe 10 or 15 frames per second.
Wow.
And when you were already getting like well over 100, I feel like that's absolutely reasonable. So, in terms of just being really budget focused, like not necessarily cheap processors, but just a lot of good value, right? You get a lot of performance for the money that you're putting into it. These all seem like extremely compelling processors. And even better than that, what it was true in previous generations holds true today. That if you go into your motherboard BIOS and you give the processor more power than it naturally calls for, right? Like it's calling for a certain amount of power. If you go in there and you say, you know what, you can have more, up the power limits, increase those, then these processors are, generally speaking, pretty capable of getting very close to the X series processors without even any serious overclocking, just increasing the power limits, letting them have access to more juice. They'll naturally boost themselves up to being very similar to the performance of the X series chips that cost $50 to $100 more. So, yeah, the 7900, the 7700, and the 7600 from AMD, of the Ryzen processors, those are they're out and they look excellent. So that's pretty cool. Okay, now, moving in the opposite direction of what AMD is doing, where they're releasing more efficient, less power-hungry chips that are still really great value, Intel this past week launched the opposite of that, a more expensive, more power-hungry, less smart processor, the 13900KS.
Oh, yeah.
So over the past couple of generations, Intel has done this with their top-tier processor, right? They released the 11900K and then the 12900K, and then they'll follow it up by releasing the KS version, which is basically the same processor, but they've just very carefully binned the silicon that goes into it to make sure that it's absolutely the best version of that processor so that they can ship it with basically a stock overclock to get it up to some higher clock speed, usually at the expense of it generating a lot more heat and using a lot more power. So the 13900KS, Intel is saying, is the first stock CPU with a clock speed of 6 gigahertz. 6 gigahertz is a big number. That is very fast.
Yeah.
It costs $700, which is 17% more than the 13900K. It performs about 5% better. So you spend 17% as much money for 5% gains. Seems kind of dumb.
Well,
And
I'm
even,
actually glad to see that Intel is going back to its roots of, giving us a product that's not as good as what they're charging for.
Right.
Yes. Yep. So
They had a few years where they surprised us and were giving us great things, and now they're back to what we're used to, and this is just fine.
Yeah. It's the 13900K is a great processor, right? So they had to obviously crap the bed at some point. That's important.
Yeah, it's
It's
got
an
to
important
balance
part of the
things
product
out.
cycle.
Yeah.
But yeah, so even under good water cooling, this thing, when it turbos up to 6 gigahertz, that's not an all-core turbo, by the way. That is a single-core turbo. It tries to do an all-core turbo to 6 gigahertz, but even under the best water cooling and all the best hopes and prayers in the world, it immediately hits 99 degrees Celsius and throttles. And drops back from 6 gigahertz down to more like your 5.6, 5.7, which is what the 13900K does. So it's like, yeah, is the silicon capable of hitting 6 gigahertz? Probably. But is it ever going to do that in real world scenarios? No. The only way you might be able to pull it off is if you have a really, really nice, fully custom loop, like water cooling loop in your computer. You might be able to get it to actually hold 6 gigahertz for a little bit. As opposed to immediately like, oh yeah, turbo. Never mind. Just kidding. Psych. I can't actually do that.
The problem is the one that they tested, they made relatively waterproof, and they just had a hose directly throwing water onto it. A fire hose. You know?
It's very much the kind of thing where I suspect that like the only people that this is going to matter to, this 6 gigahertz number, are the extreme overclockers, the guys that are bolting literal just metal pots onto their motherboards and filling them with liquid nitrogen. Like those are the folks that are going to care about the 6 gigahertz because they'll actually be able to hit and hold 6 gigahertz and probably overclock beyond that. And yeah, cool. It's great for XOC people.
They're also willing to pay more for it too.
Absolutely. So it's not worth it to normal folks. And I think maybe my favorite part about this is Puget Systems. They sell semi-custom high-end workstations to anybody who will buy them. But honestly, if you work in Hollywood and you're not working on a Mac, you're usually working on a Puget Systems computer. Like they're very high-end workstations that are designed to be extremely powerful, but also extremely reliable and just total workhorses. Puget Systems did testing with the 13900KS, and they, quote, found no meaningful improvement over the 13900K in their real-world performance tests. So they're obviously testing industry programs, industry workloads, and stuff like that to see whether or not it makes sense for them to offer this in their workstations, whether or not it's actually going to give some kind of benefit to their customers. And what they found is, no, just is not worth putting it in any of our workstations because it's in the real world, it's not going to be able to maintain this mythical boost speed for long enough to do any good. So like, yeah, you might be able to get a better Cinebench score with it, but that's it. If you actually tried to use it in, what is Cinebench based off of? I can't remember for the life of me, but if you were to try and use it in actual industry software, it'll boost up really high right at the beginning of a workload and then immediately drop back down to something very similar to what the 13900K does. So what's the point? So yeah, that's Intel. They had a good week.
When do they not have a good week?
I know, it's been a little bit since I've been able to rant about an Intel product, so I figured, here we go.
There we go.
Okay, speaking of ranting. John Deere. So, not this past week, but a couple weeks ago, they signed a memorandum of understanding with farmers, kind of in general. It's an organization that's representing farmers, quote unquote, across the country. To essentially, the idea is it's supposed to open up their tractors and allow these farmers to do repairs on their own equipment without having to go through John Deere's crap. And they won't have their machines get locked down by John Deere for trying to fix their own stuff. Which would be great. It would be awesome if that's what this actually was. More information has come out over the past couple of weeks, and I think probably the most interesting one is that Louis Rossmann, who, if you haven't heard of him, listener, he's at this point kind of the godfather of right to repair and the whole right to repair movement. The dude runs a repair shop, technically. Like, that's his thing. And that's where he first came into contact with it because, like, companies wouldn't let him repair their devices for people. And so he started from there and has turned into kind of the biggest consumer advocate in repair circles across the country. So he looked at the document and, recognized that a memorandum of understanding, if that sounds like it means nothing, listener, it's because that's true. It's not a legally binding document. It's kind of just an IOU from John Deere to the farmers of the nation, and does not actually, it's not going to hold up in court. It's not enforceable or anything like that. So he looked at that and was all like, that seems kind of fishy. And then he went out and actually got in contact with a bunch of farmers who use John Deere equipment and started talking to them. And basically they're concerned about just all of these exceptions that are in the document itself. So even if it was legally binding, there would still be a ton of exceptions to situations where John Deere could still force farmers to use their repair centers instead of repairing the tractors themselves. So yeah, it's not great, even the way it's written, to say nothing of the fact that it's not actually a legal document and doesn't mean anything, really. So it's a smokescreen. It's meant to distract us from, the whole right to repair thing. And basically, it's meant to be a thing that they can hold up when lawmakers go to try and pass laws to force them to let people repair their own tractors when they can. So that they can say, oh no, look, see, we have an understanding with them. It's fine. It's fine. You don't have to pass any laws because, laws can be enforced, whereas a memorandum of understanding can't. So my take on it is that farmers, generally speaking, aren't super thrilled with it. So I figure we probably shouldn't be either.
Yeah.
If the people to whom it applies directly don't like it, I don't know why I should. So
yeah.
Good job, John Deere.
Yes.
It does. I feel like it does mean that they're feeling not great about the situation. They see the writing on the wall. They're not thrilled with the direction everything is moving. And I think that honestly, what's going to happen is they're going to have to do something actually real, either because legislation will get passed, or because those folks that were at that cybersecurity conference a couple of months back that ran Doom on a John Deere tractor because they had hacked the thing are going to get that exploit widely out into the community, and people are going to start hacking their tractors, and John Deere is going to have to do something. Otherwise, that's just what will happen to all of their tractors. So, yeah.
Yep.
Good times. Yeah, good old Doom. Pops up in all the best places. All right. My last piece of tech news, I'm going to end here on some a higher note. You may notice that I have no Apple news this week, listener. That's because Apple doesn't ever do anything in the first couple of weeks of the year.
No.
So that's why that. OBS, the Open Broadcasting Software, which is an open source platform for streaming content onto the internet and recording content from your computer and stuff like that. It's awesome, listener. If you have never used or played around with OBS, you ought to just go look it up. There might be something that you do that OBS can make better. You might not too. I don't know. I don't know what you do with your computer, but it's cool. The fact that it's open source, even better. With their latest version, version 29, I believe, has added AV1 encoding to the software. So, this matters because, listener, AV1 is an open encoding format, so it's not proprietary, which is nice. That allows much better quality at low bandwidths. So what that means is that weaker hardware, so long as it supports hardware encoding of AV1, can manage much higher quality streamed data or recorded data than it could have with other codecs and other formats. So AV1 is probably kind of the future of stuff like streaming to YouTube or Twitch or recording gameplay or whatnot to upload to YouTube and that kind of thing. So it affects kind of a lot of industries that use that sort of thing. And I think, there's a number of things that are good about this. Like, it's an open standard, which means that the people who implement it don't have to pay a licensing fee to somebody in order to use it, which means that it's going to be cheaper for hardware to support AV1. And there's both NVIDIA and AMD's latest graphics cards support hardware encoding of AV1. And now that OBS also supports it, it actually makes sense. We have almost an end-to-end thing for this. Now we just need sites like YouTube and Twitch to also support it on their end, which they probably will soon if they don't already, honestly. So we're getting pretty much full support for AV1 across the board, which is going to make streams higher quality for folks that don't have enough money to pay for ridiculously fast internet necessarily to stream high bandwidth content. So that's great. Makes it a lot more accessible, which is nice. Also, if you're thinking about this and you're going, well, that's not that much more accessible because I have to buy a new NVIDIA or Radeon graphics card, those aren't cheap. Like, holy crap, are those not cheap? You're right. True. Intel's Arc GPUs, not to be confused with the Intel Arc database of processors, which are both spelled different. One is ARC, one is ARK, and I'm not going to tell you which one is which, listener, so good luck when you go to Google that. But Intel's Arc GPUs do support dedicated AV1 hardware encoding. And they're pretty cheap. You can get the cheapest one, the A510 or whatever. I can't remember what it was. But the cheapest one will do AV1 encoding. So even if it's the kind of thing where you just get one of those and use it as a second graphics card in your process or in your computer just for doing AV1 encoding, that's an option, you know? So all in all, this is a good thing for streamers, makes the hobby more accessible, and that's good. I like it. So thanks, OBS. And we've pretty much got an end-to-end solution for AV1 at this point. And that's nice. So that's my tech news. I have one thing of gaming news that I just decided to add because I was whining about how giant gaming corporations are kind of ruining everything for everybody. But I'll talk about that
when we're talking about that before.
Into gaming.
But hey, we'll let listener. This is rare, but we're going to let Landon lead into the gaming news. But first, he's got some other news he wants to talk about first, and then he can lead into it. So, Landon, take it away.
You're giving away the surprise, Wes. Jeez.
It's rare, I know. Well, I'm just saying. I mean, why else would we have you last?
I go last in tech news every now and then. Anyways, before we get to the surprise, Wes, I do have some tech news. And along with Apple, Google is also very quiet this time of year. But I do have... This isn't necessarily news that they want you to know about, or not that they're trying to hide it, but they are blaming users for this error. So this is a PSA. I'm starting out the same as last week, but this is Google. So Pixel 7 and 7 Pro, as you might know, listener, the camera bar on the back this year, they went to a metal frame around that, and then they have glass around the camera sensors to allow, you to actually take pictures, because it's hard to take pictures through metal. So they let the glass come through so you can see what you're taking a picture of. Anyways, apparently there have been multiple reports, like not just one or two, there's been quite a few at this point, of the glass around the cameras just shattering. And for what it appears to be, well, initially nobody could really tell why that would be happening. But what it seems to be is that when people are coming either into their house from outside where it's cold, basically going from a cold place to a warm place, and they've been, like, if you've been outside for a while in the cold, and then you come into your house and your phone warms up, or the other way around even, the metal tends, to either expand in the heat or contract in the cold. And what is happening, it is doing that and is putting pressure on the glass and breaking it. At least that's what people are assuming, because a lot of the scenarios that this is happening in is that. So Google right now is claiming that there is nothing wrong with their phone, that this is not, it's just user error, basically. But
how dare you live in places that are cold? Like, honestly.
I mean, Google is in California. They can't test this themselves.
Right.
Yeah, it never gets cold in any parts of California.
Not that cold. Well, not, yeah, okay.
I was going to say the Sierra Nevadas are in California just a little bit.
It's true, but the Google people are on the coast, so,
That's true. No, they can't drive like 3 hours inland.
That's against the rules.
It is.
They have to be working
totally
in office,
They can't be reimbursed for that, so.
Anyways, so just so you're aware, if you happen to have a Pixel 7, keep that in mind that this could potentially happen to you, and hopefully it doesn't happen. And if it does, hopefully by that point, Google is starting to be like, okay, maybe it's a problem with the design of the phone, because that's exactly what it is. Yes, this is a good design, but at the same time, there is this issue that can happen. So be aware.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Apple saying, no, you just need to like not put your phone in your pocket. That's why it's folding in half. Like, don't.
Or also, you're holding it wrong,
You're holding it wrong.
Yeah.
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 I mean, to be fair, they actually did something about the you're holding it wrong thing. With the
True.
iPhone 6, they were just like, what do you mean you sat on your phone? How dare you? Don't do that.
Yeah, nobody puts phones in their pockets. That's not what pockets are for, right?
No, absolutely. Nope. That's why we made the phone so big. It's so it wouldn't fit in your pocket. I don't know what the problem is here.
Yes, exactly. All right. Now moving on from Google stuff and on to potentially more exciting things. Samsung has announced their next Unpacked event, which is going to be February 1st in San Francisco. They're doing an in-person event this time. It's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific time, so you do the math for when that's going to apply to your time zone, because I'm not going to. I don't know where you live. But it will also be streamed on YouTube, so if you want to watch it, that's the time. This is going to be the Galaxy S23 event. We are expecting basically the same phones as last year, just with a different number and slight upgrades to cameras and whatnot, because that's what always happens. Right now, though, if you are that person that is probably going to buy this phone, you can reserve the phone before knowing officially anything about it. I mean, you can go and look for leaks because they're there. But if you want to, you can go to Samsung's website and get $50 of Samsung store credit if you reserve the phone now. Or bonus, they're calling it a bonus. You can get $100 store credit if you also order a Galaxy Book, which is their laptops, along with reserving the phone. So you get $50 extra by spending around $500 more.
Nice.
This is the worst.
Yeah.
like listener, normally I would recommend you don't pre-order a product, let alone pre-order a product that doesn't exist yet. Like, we haven't even announced this thing. You know nothing about it. You want to pay money for it?
To be fair,
sounds like a scam artist move up front.
This isn't pre-ordering. This is reserving. You don't have to put any information, any card information, just your email address.
That's true.
And then, when they announce the phone, if you don't want it, you can not order it, and you don't get the $50 store credit, which is whatever. So, if you have an idea of maybe wanting to buy one of these phones, this isn't a bad idea to do. And from what I understand, I haven't officially seen this, but because they did this last year, I think. And from what I understand, you can stack this on top of whatever trade-in value that you will get for a phone. And Samsung is really good. If you have a Samsung phone especially, they give a lot of trade-in value.
Yeah,
for
that's true.
Upgrading from another Samsung phone. So honestly, if this
is
an
an
iPhone,
iPhone, actually,
yes, that is also true. They don't give you much for a Pixel, but they'll give you a lot for an iPhone or a previous Samsung.
They really want to get your iPhone off of you.
Yeah. So, I mean, if this is something that you are thinking about, if you have a Samsung phone and you're looking to upgrade to this next version, it may not be a bad idea to reserve it. I wouldn't order a Galaxy Book laptop because that seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
For only $50 more. I mean, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But there you go. Samsung's event, February 1st. I'll be keeping an eye on that, and we'll talk about it after the fact because that's what we do here. We talk phones and such. Anyways, next bit of tech news that I have. This is not going to apply to most people, unfortunately. At least, definitely not the three of us. But if you happen to live in Europe, you could potentially buy this product. So, Sony has continued on, apparently, with the Walkman brand of devices. Listener, if you don't know what the Sony Walkman was, it originally was a cassette player that morphed into a CD player that morphed into an MP3.
That was the Discman. Just, semantics.
I had Walkman branded CD players because I had
it was the Walkman Discman, like technically, but they called anyways.
Well, technically, This isn't a Walkman either.
Semantics.
You'll love the name for this one. The name on this one is the NW-A306. Because Sony doesn't give names to products, they give numbers to products.
Yep.
But this new version of the Walkman is going to cost, in the UK, 350 euros. In the rest of the EU, 400 euros. Don't know why. I mean, money exchange, whatever. But some of the specs on this thing, it's got a 3.6-inch screen, touchscreen. So, it's running Android 12. They're claiming that this will provide CD quality sound over headphones. So it's got a it's got a headphone jack. So there you go. Also, apparently, you can get higher quality sound over Bluetooth. And the way they're doing this is, and that also includes with streaming apps. They have this thing called the DSEE Ultimate, which stands for the Digital Sound Enhancement Engine. Basically, that is taking lower quality audio via, obviously through streaming apps or over Bluetooth, and digitally enhancing that somehow to make it sound better. I don't know how they're doing it, but that's what they're claiming. Or you can obviously up or put your own songs onto it that are going to be higher quality audio. This thing has, they're claiming 26-hour battery life if you are streaming audio through apps like Spotify or Apple Music, which, well, that would be on there because it's running Android. Or if you have your own music on there, you can get 36-hour battery life and that's going to be playing 44.1 kilohertz FLAC files, which is pretty decent files.
Yeah.
The problem there is that it only has 32 gigs of space.
Oh, Sony.
So,
oh, dang.
Sony.
I mean, they're going back to the iPod from 2006, 2005.
Guys.
When that came with 30 gigs.
The year of our Lord, 2023. Come on.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, obviously they know that most people are listening to music via Spotify or Apple Music or something like that. But the problem is their customers that are buying this product are not. People that are buying a specific music player to play high quality music are not streaming music.
Absolutely not. In fact, what was the price on this thing again?
350 euros in the UK.
Okay. I'm just going to double check something real quick.
Are you seeing the price per dollar?
Well, I mean, the price isn't extravagant by any means, but you would still expect to get more than 32 gigs of space on this device.
That's terrible.
And some of that's going to be taken up by the operating system because that's how things work. So you're getting around 28, 29 gigs of space for your music. And if you're putting the higher quality audio files on there, they take up more space than a generic MP3 does. So that really is unfortunate, in my opinion. Because like I said, the people that are buying these type of products are putting their own music onto them to listen to, not streaming from apps. I don't fully understand that. It seems like a mistake.
Yeah. Hold on. Flippin', apparently FIO doesn't actually sell any products through their own website, so that's a fun little detail, in case anybody was wondering. Okay. So, I don't know if you've heard of FIO. Listener, you may have heard of them. They make audio products, right? It's kind of their jam. They have a couple of products that are essentially this, right? It's an Android-powered iPod replacement, pretty much. It's a dedicated MP3 playing device just for listening to music. And I want to say it's one of their slightly older ones, but it's $500, so it is a little bit more expensive than that. But this thing includes a bigger screen and probably a much, much better DAC, like digital to analog converter. That's what converts it to the headphones for your ears, listener. And it's got 128 gigs of storage, I believe. Oh, they have a few options here. But yeah, like it'll also do streaming stuff, but the idea is that you really want to rip your CD collection to Flax, and then you want to upload them to this thing, and then, yeah, well, it also does have expandable storage, and I guess, does the Sony have expandable storage? Like,
not that I saw.
I wonder, maybe that's their expectation. They expect you to put a 1 terabyte micro SD card in there or something like that. But yeah, I don't know, because here's the thing. I have wanted Apple to do exactly this with the iPod brand for years. Like, when it was clear that the iPod was just dying, I was like, you know what, guys? Take the iPod Touch and just beef up the DAC on that thing and make it an actual pants, really nice listening experience. Put a couple of different sizes of headphone jacks on there so that audiophiles can plug in their whatever they want to plug into these things. Make that a product. You know, you have the brand identity for it there to genuinely sell tons of them. And I feel like Sony also has the brand that they can use for stuff like this. And I know it's not technically branded a Walkman, but, or is it? Everywhere I have seen, they've been talking about it like it's, this is a digital age Walkman.
I think it is. That's the brand, and then the name is the NWA 306.
Okay, so it's like the higher level brand. Yeah, okay. So, you know, they have the brand recognition for that. I feel like, honestly, depending on what kind of a DAC they have in it, the thing that's going to hold them back is whether or not it's got expandable storage so that you can put more than 32 gigs of storage into the thing. Because other than that, I actually really like this product. Like, I think it's a great idea. And like I said, I've wanted Apple to make one for years.
Yeah. It also does have, a lot of actual, physical buttons on the thing. So not only is it touchscreen, but it has tactile buttons. So if you reach in your pocket, you can do skip to the next song, pause, turn the volume up and down, turn it on and off, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Which is really nice.
It is.
And I am seeing here, I'm looking more pictures, there is a micro SD card slot. So that is probably their thing here, is to
that
put
makes
your
more
music
sense
on a card and then put it on here. So, okay, if they want to make it a little cheaper to get that and only use the 32 gigs of space, okay. So there you go. It does have that. And it is branded Walkman on the product as well. So there's that as well, in case you were curious.
Okay.
But
yeah, it's a compelling product for me personally. Honestly, at this point, I just kind of want to look a little bit closer into what kind of a DAC they have in there.
Right.
And I might actually be in the market. So, which is weird. Yeah.
Well,
but
again, unfortunately, this is going to be Europe at the moment only.
I can import.
True.
It's fine.
So there's that. I think it's a cool product. It's not something that I'm going to buy because I don't listen to a lot of music in general anyways. I mostly listen to podcasts at this point. But for me, the places that I'm listening to music in is usually at work, and I'm surrounded by loud machines. So higher quality audio to me in that space doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
But I do like the product. I like that it's available because most phones, I should say, just aren't good enough. There are some out there that do have, well, actually not anymore because LG stopped making phones. And they were the ones that had a good DAC
in it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe not.
Yeah, no,
at least not that I am aware of.
Honestly, at this point, listener, if you want a high quality DAC in a device that fits in your pocket, you're going to be buying something like that FIO that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be buying a dongle with a high quality DAC in it, which if you're interested, you can go over to Calling All Platforms Tech on YouTube. And there's a dongle life video in there in which I do a comparison and talk about kind of the dongles that you can get that are higher quality. And if you order them straight from China, they're actually not that expensive either.
True.
In fact, I after I made that video, I bought one to use with my Mac for my headphones. Nice. So I practice what I preach. That's the takeaway.
There you go. All right. Now, the next and last thing of tech news that I have is actually something that was announced at CES, but that episode was already long enough as it was, and CES is, like we said, more about the weird things, and we have much more fun with that than the practical things, because that's what CES is for. But Roku announced that they are going to be making and selling their own branded televisions. I do believe they will still have third-party brands that they work with, like TCL and Hisense, that they've, done stuff with in the past. But they announced their own series of televisions. They have 11 different models in sizes ranging from 24 inches to 75 inches. And obviously specs are going to be different between what you get and how much you're paying. But there's a wide variety, and the prices range from anywhere from $119 to $1,000. So $999 is what they're saying. So pretty affordable for pretty much all these TVs. They're going to probably fall into the same range as those TCLs or Hisense when it comes to specs to price. So the high end is going to be pretty good, but it's not going to compare to even $1,000 Roku TV is probably not going to be as good as $1,000 Sony or LG or Samsung. But, there are some drawbacks.
There's
here.
A lot of cheaper options as well that LG and Sony and Samsung don't have. So
exactly. And I can vouch for I've got a TCL Roku TV. It is 4K, it is HDR, and it is pretty good. I'm pleasantly pleased with what it is, especially for what I paid. I did not pay very much money. I think I paid I got it on sale for like $200.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty nice TV. It's 55-inch. I like it. But that's it's not going to be for anybody that is what Caleb is for music to television. If you want the higher quality, you're going to be buying the higher end TVs from Sony or LG or Samsung.
Still, these are going to be good bang for their buck, though. And
Absolutely.
From what I understand, it's the kind of thing where Roku is designing the TV. They're these are the features, these are the panel that we want and whatnot, the ports and stuff. But I think they're still being manufactured by TCL and Hisense. I think they are still technically a TCL or Hisense, just Roku branded TV that was designed by Roku.
Yeah.
So you're kind of getting, because Roku works really closely and works really well with both TCL and Hisense already. So I can see that being very beneficial for both sides. It's just giving them another revenue stream with a little bit more brand identity.
Yeah. I think it also has some to do with the fact that both TCL and Hisense are also starting to offer their same TVs that are powered by Roku, but powered by Google TV now.
Yes.
So they're seeing that. They're like, okay, we need to get our own product out there. We can make a little more money off these rather than just, some of the money. So I get what they're doing. And like Caleb said, they are probably using either TCL and or Hisense to make these products because they don't have their own hardware division.
Right.
So it makes sense. All right. That is all of my tech news for this week. But as Wes gave away earlier, I have some gaming news. Now, don't get horribly excited because it is my gaming news. Because listener, I gotta mention this. Before we started recording, I mentioned that I had some gaming news, and Wes was like, "What do you mean? What are you saying?" Because I didn't find anything. I'm like, "Well, this is my gaming news, not your gaming news. They're two very different things."
True. This is very true.
All right. This is another thing that was, I think this was talked about at CES, but at least it was in the news last week, and I just didn't want to mention it. But Asus has come out with a new gaming laptop, but this is the Chromebook version of a gaming laptop.
Yeah.
And it's actually really good on the specs. So let's just go through some of these specs. They're saying this has a 14-inch screen, which is quite large for a laptop, but it's a gaming laptop, so it makes some sense. And 144 hertz refresh rate on that display. It's 1920 by 1200 resolution, which can output 4K visuals over HDMI 2.1. So if you want to put this onto another monitor, you can have 4K on that. So, not bad.
Okay.
They're also claiming Wi-Fi 6E, so they're up to date on that feature as well. Now, obviously, with Chromebooks, the gaming market is a little on the lower side at the moment, especially with Stadia now gone. But there is GeForce Now that you can use, Xbox Cloud Gaming, which you can also use via a progressive web app that Microsoft has come out with. So that is an option as well. And you can also use Amazon's Luna service if you're into that. And
I
also,
forgot that existed.
Yeah, I did too until I read this article. I'm like, oh yeah, they do have that. But also, Asus is including free trials for both GeForce Now and Amazon Luna. I don't know how long these trials are, but they are offering that if you buy this product. And like I said, with Xbox Cloud Gaming as a progressive web app, you can use that as well. And as we've mentioned in previous episodes of the podcast, Steam is coming to Chrome OS, and I actually think it is a beta is available right now.
Yes, you can get the beta. Yeah.
So that is there and will come in full force later on at some point. So they did not give a price of this, but they did say it is coming later this year. So there you go. If you are in the market for a high-end Chromebook that also is made for gamers, because, I mean, if you look at this thing, it is made for gamers. It's got the RGB backlit keyboard. It's a gaming laptop. It does look pretty. I mean, I like the look of it. But again, it is a Chromebook, so you got to take that into account. So there you go. That's
gaming Chromebooks. It's such a weird thing.
It's crazy, but there's like at least 5 of them now at this point.
Yeah. No, there's a few that have come out. It's like, what? Okay.
And what's funny about that, though, is, I mean, they've got these high-end specs on them, which I understand because gamers want the high-end specs. But at the same time, if you're gaming on a Chromebook, you're most likely, you're pretty much only streaming those games.
Yeah.
So the only thing that's somewhat beneficial here is the nicer screen, I guess. Mm-hmm. But even then, I mean, if you're gaming on a Chromebook, you can do that almost as well on like a $200 or $300 Chromebook.
Exactly.
Because again,
and
you're streaming.
The thing of it is, like, even the screen doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense because unless you're paying for more than just the standard GeForce Now experience, you're locked to 60 FPS anyways.
Yeah.
Like, they don't stream you more than 60 frames per second. It doesn't matter how fast your monitor is. And I think that's a limitation across the board. I don't know. Maybe Xbox doesn't limit the frame rate like that, but like I know GeForce Now has limitations on that, and
I would assume they would.
I don't know whether or not Luna does either, because I freaking, like I said, I forgot they existed.
I want to say that it is locked.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like, they're trying to save bandwidth. It makes sense to lock the frame rate so that you have a consistent frame rate, as opposed to trying to push as many frames as possible and then having your bandwidth lock up on you, and then you get a really stuttery, laggy experience just because your internet's not fast enough. Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah. So, that's my first thing of gaming news, because I have more. Surprise! Again. I guess Wes didn't give away that surprise. I have multiple things of gaming news, which is also rare.
True.
And this one, Wes might actually be excited for. Surprise, surprise. So, Wes, I know that you've recently been binging the Avatar series, The Last Airbender, because that's the Avatar series you actually want to watch. I still have never seen the movies because I don't care.
Yeah, it's fine.
But The Last Airbender is fantastic. And apparently, this has been announced. Avatar Generations is a new mobile game coming to both Android and iOS. You can pre-register. Now, it's a little trickier on iOS to pre-register. I think you have to go to a certain website. But on Android, you can go into the Play Store, search for this game, and it will be there that you can pre-register for. It does look interesting. But if you're a big Avatar fan and you also like playing mobile games, or don't like playing mobile games but want to give some a try, this might be the one for you. There is a trailer and a little bit of gameplay on that trailer on YouTube right now. If you just Google Avatar Generations, you'll be able to find it. It does look interesting. I might try it when it comes out. We'll see. I mean, it's not usually the type of mobile game that I like to play because I'm not that type of gamer, but it's there. And I want to say you'll be able to use a controller with this game because but I don't know that for sure. Again, it's a pre-register type scenario right now. So we don't know all the details yet. But I just wanted to mention that. I thought it would be kind of cool because I like Avatar, The Last Airbender. And so good. A game where you can play all the same characters is going to be great. At least it should be great, hopefully.
It should be. They could screw it up. I mean, they screwed up the movie, so,
That's M. Night Shyamalan's fault.
It really is.
Just by looking at it, it looks like it's a older Final Fantasy team thing, like turn-based.
Oh.
As I'm looking at the UI real fast and pausing, it kind of looks like you get your team of 4, and then depending on whose speed is or whose agility is faster, they'll go first versus. It's what it looks like,
That could be kind of fun.
Which is not bad because then you can sit and think about how you want to do your attacks or whatever you're doing. But that's what it looks like. Looks cool.
Yeah. So, there you go. There's that. Now, one more bit of gaming news from me. And it is also, again, mobile, because that's me. And this one, surprisingly, at least to me, came from Netflix games. But it has me excited because of what the game is. This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Now, listener, if you aren't aware, that was a game back in like the 90s. I don't know what it was available on.
This must be a port because they released this earlier. Me and my kids have been playing this for a minute.
Yeah, so is Netflix is just like wrapping it into their subscription.
They might
assume. So
this is available on Android and iOS, but you do have to have a Netflix subscription to play it.
Right. Yeah.
But yes.
That's cool.
Now, if they make that, so this game is crossplay with Xbox, Steam, like everywhere. I think they use.
Yeah. So
I want to say they use Epic's
too.
system. I could be wrong, but yeah, it's fun. Yeah. It really is fun.
So this is the mobile port of it, but it's available to Netflix subscribers.
Yeah. Now,
instead of having to buy it separately. That's cool.
From what I understand, there's not an official date yet. They said sometime. Well, I guess no. Last year they said sometime in 2023 this will be coming, and it is, I think, available now. But like, yes, it has been available. It was available in June of 2022 on consoles and PC, I think. But now it's coming to mobile, and the big benefit here is, from what I understand, the on-screen controls are decent, but you can play this with a controller, the Bluetooth controller to your phone. So you can have that benefit, I think, is going to be probably the better way to play, especially if you're used to it on a console or something. But there is the option to do it on-screen controls, which, again, from what I've read and seen, aren't horrible. So take that for what it is. Probably going to want to try it yourself first. But
yeah,
I'm excited. I actually might download this game because I love these old Ninja Turtle games from back in the day. They were so much fun.
Yeah, it's a throwback to like classic Ninja Turtle, like 90s, late 80s arcade side-scrolling beat 'em ups. Like, and it's from. And here's the thing: I was never a big fan of like side-scrolling beat 'em ups back in the day. Didn't really ever play them. But I have it on really good authority from some folks who are obsessed with classic side-scrolling beat-em-ups that this is a really good one.
It's fun. It really is. And this is one that is not only fun for adults, but it's also fun for kids because it's very easy to pick up and just play and not the what would you say, the barrier of entry is very slim.
It's pretty low. Yeah, it's a pretty low.
I did want to point this out. I was just curious. I was like, I wonder if it's actually on Game Pass. I know it's on console, but is it on the cloud? It actually is. So on the cloud for that. So not only can you get it on Xbox Game Pass and do their cloud services with this, you can also now do it on Netflix. So makes sense because this was huge and this is popular, and a lot of people have. It's been nothing but good news. So this is cool for them, and I believe the company's. I don't know how to say this, but for here it's .emu, DOTEMU is what they're saying for here, but that's here. But no, it's cool. Like I've heard nothing but good things, and when we've played it, man, we played the crap out of it, and it's great. So yes, this is a good one. If you're Netflix subscriber, this is a good one for your phone.
Yeah,
there it is.
And I'm trying to remember, but I can't remember for sure. But I remember as a kid on my NES playing a Ninja Turtle game. I don't know if it was this one or not, but man, I loved that game back in the day. It was so much fun.
This one is not those back in the day. This is just this one, taking the story of one of them, the beat 'em up, and just taking it and just putting in that same retro style and just making it as retro, but bringing it forward.
Yeah, gotcha. It's a fully brand new game. It's not like a remaster or anything like that. But yeah, it's very much a classic, like old school style and throwback to all that. So it's honestly, it's the kind of game where if you played an old Ninja Turtles side-scrolling beat 'em up back in the day, either in an arcade or on an NES or something like that, and you remember it fondly with your childhood nostalgia rose-colored glasses, this is the game you want to play now. You don't want to go back and play the old one because the old one will be like, oh man, nostalgia is a jerk. That's not nearly as good as I remember. No, this is as good as you remember it being. Right? So that it's the best kind of nostalgia stoking.
It's good. It's fun. And if they do have that crossplay, it's pretty cool. Like, because what's cool is it's 7 or 8 player drop in, drop out. So you just hit start and you could be like, you could run the whole thing by yourself, you run the whole thing with friends, or you could just be like, just drop in, drop out. And so you're like in there fighting with all 4 turtles, April, Casey Jones, and wow, I was gonna say Shredder, Master Splinter. Freaking I couldn't think of his name. So it's fun. It really is. Like, it's so cool. And then it adjusts the enemies to how many people are in there. So if you get everybody in there, it is chaos, and it's fun chaos. So yeah, it's cool. Like I said, it is crossplay. Steam can play with Xbox to Steam. So it'd be cool if whatever server Netflix is using, it'd be nice if that is as well.
I might have to download this and we can do some research on that, because that would be fun. That would be fun. I would play this game with you guys. I'd probably get destroyed, but I would play this one.
It's fun. Like I said, the barrier to entry is so low, and it's so fun.
Yeah.
So,
but that is all of my gaming news for this week.
Awesome. That's good news.
See, I may not have gaming news often, but when it happens, it's usually great.
It is. I agree. And that's why we always want it every episode.
Well, it can't happen that often, or else it's going to be boring gaming news.
It's just like Christmas. You want Christmas every day, but, you have it.
I don't want Christmas every day because that would be expensive.
Oh my gosh, yeah, seriously.
If I were the child, heck yes, give me Christmas every day. As the parent, no.
Right. Anywho, let's go ahead. Let's continue. I'll just say my news here. So Microsoft has come out and said that they're actually doing a developer direct live stream on January 25th. What is this? This is basically Microsoft, whenever they do a stream or something like this, they have a host and they get a bunch of people to come in and talk more, and it's not really about the games. This is going to be about the games. They said that it's not going to really have a host, and it's just going to go. It's going to be kind of a Nintendo Direct, if you will. It's kind of what everyone's saying. Like, just they'll say a little bit at the beginning, and then here's the game, gameplay, next game. But this is going to be the event for all of Bethesda stuff, except Starfield. They came out and said, hey, Starfield's really big. We're going to do a completely separate event just for Starfield. But then it's not going to be here. So later, they haven't announced when. So all the games, all the questions for Bethesda, for Xbox, they're going to be talking about it and pushing it through. So all questions and all things, January 25th. Okay. So that is a Wednesday of next week. So
yes.
So I'll probably be watching it. I want to check it out because obviously it's exciting. So for me, and I will return and report on that after the 25th. So perfect. It's exciting on there. Like I said, I already kind of talked about ABK and that whole thing earlier, but it's not exciting. So I'm gonna go ahead and swing over. Caleb, what you got for us for this gaming news?
All right. So in an impromptu return of the indie game spotlight of the week, Supergiant Games. Listener, if you are not familiar with Supergiant Games, yes, you are. I'll just go ahead and correct you there.
Yes.
You may. So the makers of Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, and probably most recognizable Hades, Supergiant Games do not miss when they make a game. It is stylish, it is fun, it is deep, and frequently far more meaningful than it has any right to be. Bastion was a critic's darling when it was released. Transistor is sold very, very well and was released on every platform conceivable, from computers to smartphones and everything in between. Pyre was not nearly so well received, but I feel like that's because it was just a little too weird. It was an incredibly deep, like story-driven, character-driven, like meta-analysis of like promise and like promise making and keeping and stuff like that, wrapped around the mechanics of like a competitive sports game. which is
really
weird combination, because it had like the story layer, which was like super good, and then it had the sports game, which was also super good. Like, honestly, mechanics are quite good, and it was fun to play. But just marrying those two things was kind of strange and a little bit odd. And game was great, but I understand why it didn't sell super well. And then Hades was, I don't know, Hades is like the perfect roguelike. It's I don't know what else can be said about Hades. So
did you beat that one finally?
No, heavens no. I'm terrible at roguelikes. But Hades is the only one that I actually keep coming back to, because the characters and the story and the world and everything is so interesting and so engaging. And honestly, the gameplay is super fun. I'm just not good at it. Okay. So that being said, Supergiant Games has never made a sequel. Supergiant basically moves from like one amazing concept to another concept just because it's what suits them. Not that long ago, they announced that Hades 2 is going to be a thing. They are working on a sequel to Hades. Now, is that because Hades is their most popular, best recognized game? Maybe. Is it because they feel like there's more story to tell and more opportunity to tell it? Also very probable. It is not the same. Like, okay, it is the same as Hades, but it's not the same as Hades, right? Different main character, different gist to the whole thing, but the conceit is the same. You play as a character trying to escape a place. And I think it is the underworld again. But to be fair, Greek mythology is absolutely plastered with characters trying to escape the underworld. So, like, they have lots of options to choose from when they go to try and tell a story in that space. So, you know, there's room for maybe a little bit of skepticism, because it does kind of feel like, oh, okay, Hades was so popular, we have to cash grab and make a sequel. But it's Supergiant Games. These guys, like I said, they just don't miss. This is one of the only developers on the planet who every time they say they're doing something, I sit up and take notice and I just assume the best, because they have not disappointed at all in even a little way. So it's Supergiant Games, that game company, and friggin' FromSoft. That's it. Like, they're the only three companies who every time they say, hey, we're making a game, it's all like, and it'll be excellent, bring it on. Like, you never question. So Hades 2 is coming from Supergiant Games. They did not obviously give us a specific release date for it, but it did seem like, yeah, they're getting pretty far along in development, and we could expect it. My gut says the beginning of 2024, possibly the end of 2023, I think is what they actually said, coming like late in the year, but I suspect more like early next year. But in any case, that's the indie game spotlight for the week. Just wanted to bring that up because, you know, as we have discussed, all of the big developers, all of the AAA developers, the giant corporations have done nothing. They're just sitting around waiting for this whole thing with Microsoft and Sony and everybody else to get resolved. But the indie developers, they're still doing stuff. They're still awesome. So I'm going to highlight them and their good works. So there you go.
Thank you. Yeah, that's gosh, sad that is that, but yay for indie.
Yep.
So, well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up unless Landon has one more thing.
No. I gave more than I needed to on this episode.
It's true.
That's true.
It's true. All right. Well, listener, we appreciate you listening. If you want to get a hold of us, you can on our social media platforms. You can also check out or take a look at any of our YouTube videos over at Calling All Platforms there. You can also help support Landon. Let's be real, it's supporting him and dealing with us two yoo-hoos on Patreon. You can go ahead and, you know, be very generous and just give Landon all the money and be like, yeah, we know exactly what you have to deal with, these two yoo-hoos. So here you go. You can hop on there, show some support there as well.
Listener, you should know what goes on behind the scenes.
You wouldn't want to know. I don't know.
Hey, if you go sign up for Patreon, you can find out a lot of it.
It's true. It's true if you do. There you go. All right. Well, dear listener, have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.